This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are here on a beautiful, well, let's see if it actually is. Yeah, it's a beautiful Sunday here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am recording this right now. And today, it's Super Bowl week. It's finally Super Bowl week. One of my least favorite things about the lead up to the Super Bowl is the week off, because you're so used to playoff matchups every week, and then all of a sudden it's just a week off. And now we get my favorite part of Super Bowl preparations, which is the media week, because a lot of random content gets made, a lot of random material, and it's usually just a really good time because the players usually have fun with it, and definitely media has fun with it. They ask random questions that make no sense, and then they also play like some fun games. So I'm excited about that. But today we're going to talk about Antonio Brown. Of course, we'll start off with that, and then we'll move on to Eli Manning. We'll move on to the Pro Bowl, which is happening today, and all-star games, I suppose. We'll talk about Zion Williamson's debut, because he debuted the other day and he played a second game yesterday, I think. And then after that, we'll talk about a certain NHL mascot who's in hot and boiling water right now. And then we'll talk about Boise State suing the Mountain West Conference, and what does that mean for Boise State? What does that mean for the Mountain West Conference? What does that mean for Group of 5 teams, especially in the Tier 1 of Group of 5 teams? So let's go ahead and start with Antonio Brown. So this Antonio Brown situation has been going on for weeks now. It's been going on ever since he got ever since he left the Raiders. And it's been an interesting situation going on with Antonio Brown. So if you don't know, a warrant was put out for Antonio Brown's arrest earlier this past week, and then he turned himself in to jail, and there were rumors going around that he could get up to life in prison for what he did, which what he did was he had a felony burglary. Jesus, that's a tough word for me to say, I guess, with a battery charge. So basically what happened was there was a guy with a moving truck, and he did something wrong or something like that, and then that led to an alleged assault of the truck driver. So because of all that, Antonio Brown had a warrant out for his arrest in Florida, and he turned himself in, and he came into court with a anti-suicide vest, which a lot of people kind of focus on that, but that is a common thing for prisons to do, especially for high-profile inmates such as Antonio Brown. So, yeah, the proceedings, he's wearing this anti-suicide smock. So, prosecutors asked that Brown receive no bond, citing his financial status, him being a potential flight risk, and his recent instability, which, as we all know about his recent instability, I mean, it's crazy. So, and then Brown's lawyer successfully fought for bond and accepted the judge's requirements for release. So the requirements for release were paying the bond, which is like $100,000, which is a lot. And then he also has to take steps to improve his mental health. And then he also has to wear a GPS device a ankle monitor to make sure he doesn't flee the scene. So Antonio Brown's pretty much stuck in Florida for the next couple weeks, years, months, who knows. And we're just going to talk about this. I kind of avoided this topic until all the facts came out, and because I never want to like slander a player or anything, but we're going to talk about this. So I watched Peyton's Places, which is a great series on ESPN Plus. It is Peyton Manning going around the country learning about NFL history, football history, and stuff like that. It's a good watch. Recommend it. So he did an episode on wide receivers. So this episode, he had Antonio Brown come on and he threw some passes to Antonio Brown, and it's just very interesting because this was filmed in 2018, before all of this Antonio Brown stuff happened, and he just seemed so normal. Like, you know, he had those diva qualities about him because, I mean, he's a receiver. I mean, same thing with OBJ. You know, there's those diva qualities that everybody's going to mention, stuff like that. But Antonio Brown seemed normal in this show. He seemed normal. And everybody turns to the Vontaze Perfect hit on him in the playoffs as the turning point for Antonio Brown, which you really can see that as the turning point, because after that, Antonio Brown kind of just went off the deep end. You have all those crazy situations with the Raiders. You have him getting kicked off the Patriots because, I mean, Patriots is the last chance stop, pretty much, for most people. Because if you can't work with the Patriots, then who can you work with? Because you're guaranteed to win with the Patriots, pretty much. And the Patriots could have used them this year, too, because they had no receivers. So, I mean, imagine that Patriots team with Antonio Brown. That one game they played where he scored a touchdown. That's pretty much what we would get for a whole season. So, he couldn't make it with the Patriots. So now he's kind of in limbo. He's a free agent. Nobody wants to sign him because of all this baggage that comes with him. And then now he faced up to life in prison, which I knew he wasn't going to get life in prison. That's just not going to happen. But he's got an ankle bracelet on. So yeah, he faced charges of felony burglary with battery, burglary of an unoccupied conveyance, and criminal mischief, less than $1,000. He turned himself in on Thursday, where he spent the night. The felony with battery charge is the most serious of the offenses and can be punishable by up to life in prison, which, like I said, I don't think he was going to do that, and his lawyer agreed. His lawyer said they overcharged him. There's no way he's going to spend life in prison. I mean, mostly because he's a celebrity, because celebrities don't really get punished as regular people, to be honest. But still interesting to know. And this might actually be a good thing for Antonio Brown. I know that's kind of a hot take, but this could end up being a positive for him because the mental health help that he's going to get might turn out to help him out tremendously going forward. So hopefully he gets the help he needs. Like I said, it's just crazy how he went from... This whole story is crazy, and it's definitely going to be like a 30 for 30. There's going to be a documentary. Hopefully it doesn't end up like the Aaron Hernandez documentary, where it just kind of snowballed into him murdering people. Of course, I don't want him to murder anybody, but it's still interesting to see this career arc, because he was he undrafted, or he was a late round pick, or he was undrafted, got picked up by the Steelers, worked hard, became the best receiver in the league, and then this happened. So, what a trajectory, to be honest. And it's insane, and I hope he gets the help that he needs, and I hope that this doesn't happen again for him, because that would be extremely sad. So, anyways, next topic we will talk about coming up. We'll talk about Eli Manning retiring. He retired Friday officially, but the news came out on Wednesday, and there's been a lot of talk about some certain aspects of his retirement. We'll talk about that when we come back from the break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So Eli Manning has retired. He's gone. He's done. And some people are happy. Some people are not. Some people are sad. Some people are not. Some people are indifferent. Some people are angry about it. Some people are arguing about it. So many people are arguing about it. So many people are arguing about whether he should be in the Hall of Fame, whether he's better than Phillip Rivers or Ben Roethlisberger, whether he deserves to be in the Ring of Honor for the New York Giants. There's been so many arguments about Eli Manning since he retired. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about his career. He spent 16 years with the New York Giants. So at the beginning of his career, you had the whole fiasco where his dad, Archie Manning, didn't want him to play for the San Diego Chargers. So that was a whole fiasco. Said, we refuse to play for the Chargers, which is kind of insane to me that still can be a thing. It's happened plenty of times in history. But San Diego Chargers, they wanted to draft Eli, and they were just like, no, we don't want that. So they ended up taking Phillip Rivers. So that's how he started his career. So that in hindsight, it should have been with the Chargers. What a weird timeline that would have been, because Phillip Rivers, I don't think, could survive in the New York media, to be honest, with his hunky-dunk attitude, whatever he has, his father attitude and super Christian and stuff like that. So I don't think he'd survive in New York. Eli, would he have stayed with the Chargers the whole time? That's the big question there if he went to the Chargers, because clearly the Manning family was unhappy with the San Diego Chargers organization already, and that was before he got drafted. I don't know the full story on that, but it's very interesting. So Eli Manning starts out his career as not a nuisance, but kind of as a problem for the Chargers, and the Giants kind of won out on it. So first half of Eli Manning's career, he went 69-50 record. 69-50, which is pretty good. It's above 500. It's not the best, but he won 2 Super Bowls and got 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Now, a lot of people have been using the Super Bowl argument, and I agree with it somewhat, where people are saying that Super Bowls don't matter when regarding Hall of Fame stats, whether or not you should get in the Hall of Fame. So, because the Super Bowl is a team aspect. And to that, I say, are you the same person that argues that Tom Brady should be the greatest of all time because he won 6 Super Bowls? Yeah. You can't go both ways. So, Eli Manning, my argument here is that, yes, Super Bowls are a team sport, but he won the MVP for both Super Bowls. And he had tremendous throws in each game to put the Giants over the Patriots. And also he stopped Tom Brady from winning his 8th one, which apparently it's not a team sport when it involves Tom Brady. Tom Brady won all 6 of those Super Bowls all by himself. But anyways, so that's the first half. Second half of Eli's career is not very good. 48-67 with only 1 playoff appearance, which they lost, I believe. So, what is Eli Manning's legacy? His legacy is easily the Super Bowls versus the Patriots, both of them. They're a major part. He made game-changing throws, and great runs in the playoffs both years. Both years, I think one year the Giants were 9-7 or 10-6 or something going into the playoffs, and they made a fantastic run to make the Super Bowl. I remember one year they beat a 12-4 Carolina Panthers. Then they beat a 13-3 Green Bay Packers with Brett Favre in Lambeau, and then they beat, of course, the 18-0 Patriots. So that's as good as a playoff run as you can get. In the second run, I'm pretty sure they beat the Packers again with Aaron Rodgers this time. And yeah, so both times great playoff runs. Led both times not the best regular season, but fantastic playoff runs to win Super Bowls twice. Of course, you have the helmet catch, David Tyree catch, where Eli seemed to break like five tackles to avoid a sack and then tossed it up, and that was definitely more of a David Tyree thing, but it was still impressive how Eli Manning broke all those sacks. I mean, we talk about Deshaun Watson doing the same thing in the wild card round of the division round of the playoff. No, it was the wild card round of the playoffs. We talk about that and we're like, oh man, that's fantastic. But Eli Manning did it against one of the best defenses in the league in the Super Bowl. And I mean, I know a lot of people talk about the David Tyree catch, whether it was a catch or not, but I feel like not a lot of emphasis is put on Eli Manning avoiding the sack there. So, does he deserve the Hall of Fame? Notice how I didn't ask if he will get in the Hall of Fame, because he will get in the Hall of Fame. There is not a question. He's going to get in. It doesn't matter. All this arguing I've heard on sports media, on Twitter and stuff like that, it doesn't matter. He's going to get in. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. There's no way he doesn't. But does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? So this is a very interesting thing. Like I said, he had 2 Super Bowl MVPs. 4 other players have achieved this. 3 of them are in the Hall of Fame, and 1 of them is going to get into the Hall of Fame. So here, Joe Montana, Hall of Fame. Terry Bradshaw, Hall of Fame. Bart Starr, Hall of Fame. And Tom Brady, future Hall of Fame. Only 5 players have won 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and Eli Manning is one of them. Now, whether or not you believe he should have won those MVPs is a different subject. We're not going to talk about that, but he won them. So you can't really deny him at that point. He played for a long time. He's 7 on the career list of passing yards and passing touchdowns. And the way I see his Hall of Fame campaign being, he's very similar to Derek Jeter, where he has the stats to back it up. He has championships to back it up. But in the eyes of everyone, in the eye test for most people, he is not great. But he has the accolades. He played in the New York media market, which, in my opinion, is one of the worst markets to be in. People always say, oh, we want to be in New York. You got mass exposure, all this. I disagree. New York media is terrible. They chew you up. They eat you out. They eat you, chew you up, spit you out, and it's just the high expectations for New York teams and how they actually perform. Best example I have is the Knicks. The Knicks are always expected to perform highly, do great, and they never do. And any player that plays on the Knicks, look at Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was the best player for the Knicks in the past 20 years. And he kind of got shoved out of there. So the way I see it, he got through the New York media, kind of like Derek Jeter did. He won championships like Derek Jeter did. And he's beloved by his franchise, like Derek Jeter. But everyone else in the country is kind of like, I don't know about that. So, will Eli get in? Probably. It's not even he might not get in his first year, he might not get in his second year, but he's going to get in. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. It's just going to happen. All the Manning people, if your last name is Manning, you're in the Hall of Fame. So good luck, Arch, their younger nephew or whatever. So he's going to make it. And then the last thing is Eli versus Rivers versus Roethlisberger. Which one would you rather have? They all came out in the same draft. Which would you rather have? And here's a big thing here. Eli has had the worst teams out of these three. Because Phillip, you had the mid 2000s Chargers, late 2000s Chargers, who were really good. They should have won Super Bowls, but they never did. Ben Roethlisberger always had a pretty good team around him, and he won a couple Super Bowls because of it. Eli Manning, I feel like it never really had. He had a pretty good defense going into that first Super Bowl, but after that, he's kind of had blah teams. So the way I see it, Eli can put you over the hump, even with a mediocre team. Phillip, you could put a great team around him, but just something's just not there. He just can't get you over the hump. And then Big Ben, he's kind of the wild card here because he instantly saved the Steelers because the Steelers weren't doing so hot when they got him, and then they started, being the Steelers again. So Ben Roethlisberger's never had a terrible team around him. The Steelers this year, they were so bad because of injuries and because they had a carousel of quarterbacks because Ben Roethlisberger got hurt. So I'm leaning towards Ben Roethlisberger if it wasn't for his personal baggage. Honestly, I'd go with Eli. Because if you put a good team around Eli, who knows how many Super Bowls they would have won. Because the Giants had some of the worst teams you could have put around a star quarterback. Now, Eli's contract didn't help that out at all, of course, but just saying. So, we'll move on. We'll talk about the Pro Bowl in the next segment. We'll talk about the Pro Bowl and all All-Star games, because apparently they're all happening at the same time, basically. So, stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to Extreme Cage Fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Do I really have to talk about the Pro Bowl? I really don't. So here's my view about Pro Bowl, All-Star games, stuff like that. They're dumb. It's a outdated concept. It was a concept that was made by Major League Baseball the longest time ago, and it was mostly just to sell tickets because where else are you going to see Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, except for the Yankees, but where else are you going to see all the best players in baseball, all these titans of baseball? And it was back when TV wasn't a thing, so it was really just a spectacle. It was a huge event. If you weren't there, then you weren't going to see that group of players on the same field ever again. So that's how the MLB All-Star Game started, and that's how pretty much every All-Star Game started, because every league is just like, well, that makes money. People want to go see that. Blah, blah, blah. But then the advent of TV, bigger TV deals, TV contracts, then you have the internet, and then you have social media now, where if you want to watch highlights of a player, all you got to do is type it in, and you got highlights for days. Like, for instance, if I wanted to watch Anthony Davis, just type it into Google. I can watch Anthony Davis. If I wanted to watch LeBron James, There's 20 years of LeBron James I can watch. So, All-Star games kind of outdated at this point. So the Pro Bowl is today, Sunday. The NHL All-Star game, which I actually enjoy the NHL All-Star game. They tried new things. That was last night. The NBA All-Star game released their rosters, which I will talk about them shortly. I just wanted to let everyone know. Just want to let everybody know that All-Star game's kind of dumb. Not gonna lie. The Pro Bowl is definitely dumb because football is such a contact sport, high impact sport that all the players that are playing in the Pro Bowl don't want to be there. And they have tried to make it more interesting with the skills competition, which I really enjoy the skills competition. However, I feel like it doesn't last long enough because you have the precision passing, which a lot of people saw Lamar Jackson do. And apparently Lamar Jackson not hitting a small target from 40 yards away means he's a terrible precision passer, but whatever. I mean, 14-2 record. You got dodgeball. Dodgeball is a good time. Jarvis Landry did fantastic in dodgeball. They had a competition where Russell Wilson was throwing to DBs, and DBs got to pick it off or whatever, and that was pretty fun. So the Pro Bowl, the game itself, no one cares about. Not a single soul cares about it. I've never met anybody that was just like, yeah, Pro Bowl, yeah. No, not at all. Then you move on to the NBA, which I'll get to the starting lineups in a little bit. You move on to the NBA, and it's just 160 to 150. It's so much offense to the point where it's not fun at all, because I mean, basketball's a two-way game. You got to play offense and defense. That's one of the special things about it. Because in football, you can play offense, but you don't have to play defense. You can play defense, but you don't have to play offense. Baseball, you can be a DH and not have to field, or you can be a hitter or a pitcher. Pitchers, if you play in the American League, pitchers don't have to hit. Basketball is really the only sport where you have to be good on offense and defense, but in the All-Star game, nobody plays defense. And everybody's just trying to get points, try to be flashy, and, I mean, more power to them. I guess people find that interesting. I personally don't, because there's just no controversy, or there's no competition. Like, maybe there's a competition to see who can score more points, but in my opinion, that's not fun. Why not try to stop the guys that are trying to score points? But that's my view. And then the NHL All-Star Game, they do 3 teams for each, or wait, they do a team for each division, and they do like a 3-on-3 tournament, which is a lot of fun. And then they also have a mascot game, which I saw some clips from. That was funny. But and then they also have some skill competitions as well. So NHL's been trying really hard recently to get their All-Star game to be much more exciting, much more pleasing to the common eye, which it still isn't, because no one cares about All-Star games. It's an outdated concept. It just is. But we'll move on. We'll move on to the starters, the All-Star starters. So for the East, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have Joel Embiid. You have Pascal I was doing so well. Kemba Walker, and then you got Trae Young. Then the West, which the West All-Star team would literally destroy any team they play ever. Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic, James Harden, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. Can we just imagine this real quick? You have Kawhi and Anthony Davis getting rebounds all day. You got LeBron James passing it to a wide open James Harden or Luka. I mean, Jesus. How would you even stop that? Like, there's literally no weakness there, and that's why it's an all-star game. They're all all-stars. So that's the starting 10. It was selected by fans. So Anthony Davis is the 7th All-Star selection. James Harden with 8th. LeBron James with the 16th. Jesus. I feel like I would just hate it by that point. So the West has a bunch of older bunch of guys who've already done this before, except for Luka. Luka, this is his first one. He turned 21 on February 28th. Good Lord, he's not 21. Then over on the East, you have a younger crowd over there. You got Giannis, which is his fourth. Joel Embiid with his third selection. Pascal with his first. Kemba with his fourth. And Trae Young with his first. So my prediction right now is that the West is going to win. And you can't really tell me otherwise, pretty much. So LeBron James won with the fan vote. He got number 1. Anthony Davis got number 2 in fan vote. Kawhi Leonard got number 3, proving that moving to Los Angeles helps you with fans, I guess. I don't know. Then you have Jokic for the Nuggets. He got 4th in fan vote. Paul George got 5th. Carmelo Anthony got 6th for some reason. Brandon Ingram got 7. Porzingis got 8. Rudy Gobert got 9. And Karl Anthony Towns got 10. And then that was the Western Conference front court, and then Western Conference back court. Luka, James, Damian, Russell, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, John Morant, Chris Paul, D'Angelo Russell, Steph Curry, which, why is Steph Curry getting votes? He hasn't played in years. Eastern Conference winners were Giannis, Joel, and then you got Pascal. Then you got Jimmy Butler after that, Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo. I've never seen that name before. Jesus. DeMontis Sabonis, Andre Drummond, Chris Middleton, Taco Fall got 10. Taco Fall, jeez. The backcourt was Trae Young, Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, Derrick Rose, Kyle Lowry, Zach LaVine, Ben Simmons, Bradley Beal, Jaylen Brown, Spencer Dinwiddie. And so those are the guys who got the votes. Nothing really too shocking here except for Steph Curry being in there, and then Taco Fall getting top 10 in votes for the front court, which is funny to me, but because he doesn't really play that much. So there you have it. Like I said, I don't care. It's the All-Star game. Will you watch it? Maybe. I mean, so the dunk contest is not even that fun anymore. 3-point competition is actually, I think, is a lot of fun, but not a lot of people actually do it. Like if Clay and Steph were in it every year, it would be a lot of fun to watch. I'm assuming Trae Young is going to be in it this year, but who knows? I'm a big fan of the 3-point competition. The dunk competition used to be a lot of fun, but it's kind of gotten, people say it's gimmicky now, but the thing is, do you just want to see normal dunks? Because these gimmicks at least make it a little interesting. But it's just not interesting to me because some of the best dunkers in the game don't play in it. They don't perform in the dunk contest. It's a bunch of guys that either you've never heard of, or there are people like Dwight Howard who's just trying to get back into the public psyche. So, makes no sense to me. We'll keep it in the NBA when we come back. We'll talk about Zion Williams' debut and the fat shaming that happened with him as well.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Zion Williamson, it finally happened. The media is happy. ESPN is happy. New Orleans is happy. I'm indifferent, to be honest. Zion Williamson, he finally had his debut this past Wednesday night. It finally happened. We can all stop talking about what the Pelicans will look like with him. because the first half started and Zion scored 2 points. And he looked bad. He looked out of sorts. He looked out of shape, as mentioned by the ESPN broadcast crew. He looked a little out of shape. He looked a little overweight. He's like the 4th heaviest player in the league or something like that. And that happened. So, only scored 2 points. Only scored 2 points. In the first half. It's bonkers. It's crazy. I mean, we hyped this kid up, hyped him up, and he let us down like this. Going into halftime is a letdown, man. And then, whoa. The second half he came out. Second half he came out. He came out, man. He came out. He exploded for 17 consecutive points, including 4 3-pointers in a row, which nobody expected him to shoot 3-pointers, of course, and he hit 4 in a row. I mean, I saw him line up for that 3-pointer, and I was like, what is he doing? What are you doing? They're going to let you take that all day. And they did. And he made it all day. He took it all day. So, Zion with 4 3-pointers in a row, 17 consecutive points in 3 minutes and 30 seconds of action, which is crazy. He did not perform a single dunk. He had a layup or something like that. So everybody going into this, everybody was like, oh, he's going to dunk on people. He's going to make these crazy acrobatic moves. And he came out. He looked slow. He looked sluggish. He looked out of shape, which is understandable because this is his first NBA game. We're halfway into the season. And this is his first NBA game. He had rehab, of course, but he's got to get up to speed. He never got the grace period that most rookies have, which is they get to play a couple games in the beginning of the season, get used to the speed of the NBA, and then they get to be however good they are. Zion, on the other hand, got thrown out there, and everybody was expecting him to score 50 points or something insane like that, and that's just not possible. So he came out in the second half. He adjusted, which is something you always want to see with rookie players, with new players, with veteran players, even coaches, anything. If it's in sports, you want to see people be able to adapt, be able to adjust to what's going on. And Zion adjusted. He adjusted. He scored 17 consecutive points in 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes. That's crazy of action. Now, Pelicans lost the game, and his load was pretty much exactly how I expected it to be. It was very little. He had choppy 4-minute stints in the first half, which kind of stunted any rhythm that he could have made. And then the second half, he played 3.5 minutes for that 17 consecutive points. And then he played very little after that. So he played pretty much like 15 minutes of total game time. And he scored 19 points or something like that, or more than that. 17 consecutive points, which is insane. 12 of those were three-pointers, which, like I said, no one expected Zion to shoot for a 3, which, I mean, sort of, we should have expected it because 3-pointers are such a big part of the NBA now, and the fact that Zion is that big and he can go into the paint and he can lower his body and he can force his way in, or he can shoot a 3-pointer. Pick your poison. That's insane. It's going to be really crazy to see how much Zion affects games now, because you can't leave him open for a 3. So that means you actually have to cover him. You can't double team him because he looked like he had a good handle of the ball. He looked like he could pass the ball really well. He looked like he had good court vision. So you can't really double team him, because if you do that, he's going to pass it out to the open man. So, Pelicans still lost the game. They lost 121-117 to the Spurs. Now, I believe they could have won if they put Zion in a little bit more. But, you know, if they wanted to win that bad, they probably should have let Zion stay in the game. But they adhered to the minutes restriction and sat him for the final 5 minutes of the game, right in the middle of him scorching the earth with his basketball play. So it was frustrating that the Pelicans left him out because I want to see Zion play in a high stressful situation like that. But I understand the minutes restriction. You kind of want him to stay healthy, especially if you can keep him healthy throughout the rest of the year and he's still healthy going into the offseason, so he can just be picture perfect health going into next season, which is what the Pelicans are hoping for, because next season is kind of the Pelicans. It's not a win or bust year. It's just it kind of counts. It's a win or bust year, actually. Yeah, I'll change my mind mid-sentence. So, yeah. Zion said, "Coach, I can win the game for this team. Leave me in." They did not leave him in. Alvin Gentry did not leave him in. So, biggest buzzkill ever witnessed in an NBA game. Fans were chanting, "We want Zion," as he sat on the bench. He was the number one pick. He's the main reason people bought season tickets. His injury kind of screwed up with some people's plans of watching Pelicans games. It screwed up ESPN because ESPN put Pelicans games on primetime a lot. And nothing came up with it because he got injured. And now he is back and they're not playing him. So, he did finish his debut with 22 points, 8 of 11 shooting, which is pretty good. 4 from 3, as I mentioned. 7 rebounds, 3 assists, all that in 18 minutes. Only 18 minutes of the game. So, Zion, he of course played a game yesterday, but I didn't watch it and I don't have the stats pulled up for me right now. But he was electrifying. He definitely proved that he is a big component for the Pelicans. I am all on board of the Zion train. He proved that he belongs in the league. He proves that he can do a lot of great things for the league. So good for him. Good for the Pelicans. Pelicans have a really good chance at making playoffs next year. This year, I don't know. If they go on a streak, which they've won 10 of the last 14 going into this game, where Zion debuted, if they can go on another streak like that, then they have a chance at sneaking into the playoffs. But as I mentioned when we talked about Zion's debut, would it be a good thing to sneak into the playoffs? Because you want Zion to be healthy for next year, because next year is your real compete year. That's your real competitive year. Now, of course, every NBA team wants to win. All the players want to win right now, obviously. But you want Zion to stay healthy, so you don't want to abuse him. He's probably going to play about 18 to 20 minutes every game. And he's probably not going to play in crunch time, apparently, until he is fully healthy. They're not going to risk anything with this kid. He's already had 2 injuries, and he played his first NBA game. He finally played his first NBA game. He's already had 2 injuries before he played his first NBA game. So they're being very cautious. I understand why they're being very cautious, and it's understandable. It's frustrating, but it's understandable. It's very frustrating to a casual viewer, to a casual fan. It's frustrating if you're a Pelicans fan. It's just frustrating overall. But we have to cherish the small time that he does play because it is magical. It is electrifying. Obviously. So, when we come back from the break, we will talk about an NHL mascot who's in deep trouble. So, stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fixed? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? we've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So, the story that I'm about to tell you, it was a story by Christian Hetrick of the Philadelphia Inquirer, in case you were wondering. So everything I read off to you is from that story. So check it out. Check him out. He's a pretty good writer. So everybody knows about the Philadelphia Flyers mascot, who they got about a couple years ago, named Gritty. He's the perfect representation of Philadelphia that you can think of. He's fuzzy. He's got like a redneck beard going on. He's got like a mullet. He's a perfect hockey mascot. He's done some crazy things since he's become the mascot of the Flyers, and everybody says he is the perfect embodiment of the Philadelphia Flyers. I wonder if people are saying that now, because this man, Chris Greenwell, took his 13-year-old boy, Brandon, to the Wells Fargo Center to meet Gritty. This was an exclusive event for season ticket holders, so obviously there were season ticket holders. This is an exclusive event for season ticket holders where you can get a photo, some FaceTime with Gritty. They waited in line for an hour. So to go and take a picture with Gritty. And his son apparently was patting Gritty on the head after the photo was taken. So Gritty, as they were walking away, Gritty decided to, according to this article, get up, took a running start, and punched this guy's kid as hard as he could. So just first off, the concept of this is just bonkers to me, because why would he do that? Why would Gritty do that? So apparently kid was just like patting his head, I guess, and he was annoyed by that. So as they were walking away, he just got up, sprinted to the kid, and just smacked him in the back of the head, which means sometimes, gotta do what you gotta do. I'm joking, but so there's no video footage of the incident because cameras were focused on other locations in the room. Company declined to identify who was playing Gritty that day, which is a smart move because you don't want to throw that employee under the bus, but I'm sure they're probably going to fire the dude in a little bit so everybody will know. But you obviously don't want that name to be out there because the social media brigade against him would be the worst. So just keep it to the name brand Gritty because you could take it. People will forget about it in a little bit. So the Flyers said they conducted a thorough investigation and found nothing to support this claim. Greenwell took his son to see a chiropractor about a week after the incident. Brandon suffered from mild pain, diagnosed him with a back bruise or a contusion to lower thoracic spine with subluxation. So basically he had a bruise on his back. I mean, that's basically what that means. I mean, it's nothing serious. I feel like this guy's kind of going a little extra here, but whatever. So they took it to the police, described the case as a physical assault, and the case is active and ongoing with the Philadelphia police. Greenwell is dumping his season tickets after 22 years because of this whole thing. So he emailed officials at the Comcast Spectator, which is the owning group of the Philadelphia Flyers, complaining about the picture that they took with Gritty. No, it was not correct for my son to harmlessly tap him on the head, which has some passive aggressiveness that I enjoy. But for a Flyers employee to throw a full punch at someone with his back turned and hurt a 13-year-old boy is assault, unprofessional, and unacceptable for your organization. So he went straight for the top with this one. So yeah, and by the way, I have the picture. I put the picture in my notes here, and the picture is hilarious. And if you if you want to look at the picture, just Google it. Just Google like Gritty punches kid, and it'll be in the article, the Philadelphia Inquirer. So you have this dude. He's wearing a Flyers jersey, whatever. His kid's wearing a Flyers jersey, and then Gritty's like looking off to the side. Gritty's not even looking at the camera. Gritty's just like, what? And then there's like a Secret Agent Service person in the back, like wearing sunglasses and a suit, and he's just like chilling there. And it's like a terrible like metallic background. It's supposed to be like a wintry thing, I suppose, but it's like a terrible metallic background, and it's just funny. I'm trying to describe it as best as I can. And like this dude and his kid are just smiling, and Gritty's just like looking off to the side. Oh man, it's great. It's rich. It's a rich photo. Please, I implore you to look up this picture. It is a pretty great picture. So Philadelphia Flyers offered special perks to make up for this, such as showing his son on the giant scoreboard, the Jumbotron. Let him into the locker room, meet players, get autographs, which if you're a 13-year-old boy, that'd be pretty sweet. Sitting on the player's bench during warm-ups before a future game, which that would be pretty sweet. So the Flyers are trying to make it up. Like I said, there's no real evidence that this happened. All we have to really go off of is the fact that there is a picture of them with Gritty, so we know for a fact that they were with Gritty at the time that this happened. But there's no evidence that Gritty actually punched him. And I feel like someone else would have came out. Like someone else would have like corroborated the story and said, yeah, that happened. I saw it with my own two eyes. But nobody did. The video thing is kind of sketchy. The video thing is kind of sketchy because why is there not video of this event, especially with a high profile celebrity like Gritty? So yeah. Like I said, it's very interesting that nobody's kind of like corroborated with this story. Nobody's really supported this guy's claim of what happened. The organization did an investigation, which of course it's kind of meh. We're not going to really believe that. But the fact that no one else in that season ticket holder line kind of came out and said anything makes it kind of sketchy. Now, I'm not saying this dude lied about Gritty punching his kid. I mean, I'm sure something like that happened, but I don't think this kid's back bruise. It's very not realistic, if you ask me. It's a very interesting story, but this led me to look up. The article also mentioned different mascots, which the Philly Fanatic, which is the Philadelphia Phillies mascot, he's the most popular mascot in the world. I'm pretty sure everyone can recognize him. The Philly Fanatic, especially the Atlanta Braves, stole him pretty much and made him like weird flesh colored. But so the Philly Fanatic apparently was dubbed the most sued mascot in sports in 2002. A study in 2002. So first off, there's been a study about how many times mascots have been sued. And then second, the Philly Fanatic won that study of most sued mascot in professional sports, in the majors. And then now we're continuing the Philadelphia tradition with Gritty. Good job, Gritty. So will anything come of this? Probably not. I feel like they don't have substantial evidence. The only thing they have is the bruise that the kid has and the picture that they have with Gritty, but that bruise could have happened anywhere. And like I said, there's no other person that has corroborated with their story that I know of. So it's going to be very interesting how this is going to continue. The Philadelphia police is, of course, going to investigate, and we'll see if that actually comes up with anything. So we'll see, man. We'll see. And then coming up next for our last topic, we got a big one. It's actually, it's not, I should have switched these two topics to be honest, but it's kind of a big one. It's kind of a serious one. Boise State is suing the Mountain West Conference. We're going to find out why, and we're going to find out if it makes sense for them to do that when we come back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
As we all know, Boise State is one of the premier Group of 5 teams in the country. They're up there with, first off, they're on top of the mountain. Everyone knows about Boise State. Ever since the 2007 Fiesta Bowl, everybody knows about Boise State. Boise State is the closest Group of 5 team to make the BCS national championship when the BCS was still around. They were like 4th or something like that. They're probably the most likely team now to ever make it into the college football playoff, if that is even possible for Group of 5 teams. So, Boise State, they're on top of the Group of 5 sphere. You, of course, have App State with them. You have Hawaii sometimes. You have... Let's see if I can think of any other ones. You have Troy's up there sometimes as well. And that's pretty much it. That's tier 1 Group of 5 teams where they could easily play in a Power 5 conference and not be the worst in it, given a couple years to adjust, of course. Boise State and App State, both up there, because they both have very dedicated communities around them. There's nothing else really to do in those towns, in Boone or in wherever Boise, Idaho, duh. But so here's the thing. January 9th, Mountain West Conference, Boise State's in the Mountain West Conference, Commissioner Craig Thompson said that the conference's new contract, which runs through the 25-26 season, will be the last in which Boise State would have its home games negotiated separately. So what does that mean? So Boise State currently receives $1.8 million more than the other Mountain West schools in annual payouts. Boise State released a statement saying that they are weighing their options to move forward, including a lawsuit. So basically what happened was, for TV deals with the Mountain West Conference negotiated their own TV deals, but Boise State gets to negotiate their own deals for home games. So basically, Boise State would make more money. They get to negotiate with ESPN directly, or with CBS directly, or Fox directly, to get their home games broadcasted on TV, which of course makes sense because Boise State has the biggest rapport around the Mountain West Conference. So it makes sense that they're going to make more money. They're the main reason people would tune in to a Mountain West football game. No offense to these other teams. I like a lot of these other teams. A lot of them have been really good lately, but that's the fact of the matter. A casual fan is not going to tune into a Wyoming game or a Utah State game unless they're playing Boise State, because they're going to be like, oh yeah, Boise State. So it makes sense. The lawsuit alleges that Mountain West is breaking an agreement Boise State and the conference signed on December 31st, 2012. So what happened then? Boise State decided to leave the Mountain West Conference. They decided to leave the Mountain West Conference and join the Big East, which makes absolutely no sense geographically, because Boise State's all the way over here in Idaho, and the Big East, all the Big East guys are on the East Coast, hence the name the Big East. So that makes no sense, but they were going to leave, because the Big East was considered a Power 6 conference or whatever, what have you. But then the Big East disbanded. The Big East became no more. A lot of the teams went to the American Conference and became Group of 5. And if you don't know, the Big East had BCS ties. They got New Year's Six bowls. Big East teams had a chance of making the national championship in the BCS system. And this is before the playoffs started. So moving to the Big East was not a bad idea. But then the Big East kind of dissolved. It crumbled football-wise. There's still a Big East in basketball. Actually, there's still a Big East in football, but it's all like small private schools, Catholic schools, stuff like that. So the Big East crumbled. All the big teams left. Louisville, Pittsburgh, Miami already left a long time ago, but West Virginia, all those teams left. And then the conference kind of crumbled, and most of the rejects, the people that are still there, like USF, UCF, they went to the American Conference. So when that crumbled, Boise State kind of came back to the Mountain West. Agreement stated that schools' home games would be negotiated separately with no end date to that setup mentioned. So Boise State is suing because Mountain West is taking away the one thing they had in that agreement, which is that they get to do their own home games. So the last TV deal with CBS and ESPN gave Mountain West members $1.1 million each, while Boise State earned $2.9 million. The new deal with CBS and Fox triples other schools' distribution, but it only doubles Boise State's, which is still significantly more than all the other institutions, but Boise State's obviously not happy about it. So Boise State was expecting to keep that additional $1.8 million and increasing it proportionally to the new deal. So they were expecting more than $1.8 million than the rest of the conference. So Boise State football coach Brian Harsin expressed disappointment in the conference for lack of promotion for Mountain West teams. Boise State is Mountain West's biggest television draw, as I mentioned. They've won more games than any other group of 5 schools since rejoining the Mountain West, which is 95. They won 95 games since December 31st, 2012. So let's talk about this. Who are the other teams in the Mountain West? What other teams could you watch in the Mountain West? You have Air Force, who had a really good year this year. They went 11-2. They pretty much always win the Commissioner's Trophy because they don't have the same restrictions that Army and Navy have. You have Utah State, who's usually meh. You got Wyoming, who's usually meh. Colorado State's usually, oh gosh. New Mexico's usually bad. San Diego State's been up recently. Hawaii went 10-5, which, of course, Hawaii plays 15 games because when they schedule, they get extra games just because of the travel, so they get to play. They basically play like 7 away games and 8 home games or something like that. It's crazy. So Nevada, usually pretty good. San Jose State's kind of middling. Fresno State's good sometimes, and then UNLV is usually struggling all the time. So those are the other teams in the Mountain West. Would you watch any of these other teams if they were not playing Boise State? I personally would watch Air Force and San Diego State because they've both been pretty good. I'd watch Hawaii if I was up late enough to watch Hawaii, if I really hated myself and wanted to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember one game this year, they literally had a 12:30 kickoff time. Like 30 minutes after midnight kickoff in Hawaii. Makes sense for Hawaii because there it's like 7:30. But for majority of the people that live in this country, which is on the East Coast, that is impossible to do unless they are drunk or have insomnia. So this is very interesting. It could potentially lead to a breakup between Boise State and the Mountain West, which brings up a lot of great possibilities because I personally think Boise State should join a Power 5 anyways. I think Boise State could be a powerhouse if they join a Power 5 because their main issue right now is kind of recruiting. They recruit really good players. They have really good coaches. They have a really good program around them, but those players are not good enough to win Power 5 games. Now, of course, they beat Florida State this past year. Florida State has a lot of great talent, but they didn't have great coaching. I think Boise State, if they move to the Pac-12, they could easily win the Pac-12 within like 5 years. Easily, I think. Because really the only team I could see stopping them is Oregon. It's the only team I see stopping them in the Pac-12. So I think Boise State moving to the Pac-12 would be great. I think Big 12 is kind of a stretch, in my opinion. But I think Boise State moving to a Power 5 conference would be the best thing to come out of this. Obviously, I I mean, something about Boise State makes them think they can't make the jump, because TCU made the jump to the Big 12. TCU and Boise State were both Mountain West buddies. They were both Group of 5 teams that were really good, and they always competed and stuff like that. TCU jumped to the Big 12 while Boise State stayed in the Mountain West. Now, of course, they tried to jump to the Big East, which, once again, why? So it might be a thing of just the Pac-12 doesn't want Boise State, which I don't understand why they wouldn't want Boise State, because Boise State's a really good football team, great football program. But we'll see what happens. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening to the Sunday show. You can follow me on Twitter at Strickland_Josh. You can follow GSMC Sports on Twitter, GSMC_sports. You can follow the rest of the GSMC podcast network. You can rate, like, review this podcast. Please. Helps so much. Please. Thank you for listening, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and get ready, because it's Super Bowl week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.